The worst betrayals don't announce themselves. They slip in quietly, wearing familiar faces and speaking in voices you've trusted your whole life. Mine arrived on my 40th birthday, wrapped in an ivory envelope and delivered with a smile that had once meant safety. This is Revenge Stories with Michelle, a home for quiet courage and true endings. If you feel my words, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your voice matters here, your story matters too. My name is Victoria Sterling, though for most of my life I answered to Victoria Chen. I'm 40 years old now, CEO of a company that revolutionized how small businesses survive in a digital world, but 3 years ago I was nobody special. Just another forgotten daughter sitting at a birthday dinner, about to discover that the people who gave me life had been planning my destruction for decades. The restaurant was called the Golden Swan, one of those places where the chandeliers cost more than most people's cars, and the waiters moved like shadows between tables. I'd received the invitation 3 weeks earlier, my mother's handwriting on cream paper that felt expensive between my fingers. Your 40th birthday celebration, family dinner at the Golden Swan, 7 p.m. I should have known something was wrong. My family didn't celebrate me. They tolerated me at holidays, forgot my existence between obligatory gatherings, and generally treated me like furniture that occasionally needed dusting. But a birthday dinner? At the most expensive restaurant in Phoenix? The hope I could never quite kill whispered that maybe this year would be different. I'd spent 3 hours getting ready that night. The emerald dress I'd bought hung perfectly, not too formal, not too casual. I'd practiced my smile in the mirror, the one that said I was grateful but not desperate, happy but not needy. 40 years of trying to be exactly what they wanted had taught me to modulate everything about myself, to become smaller or larger, depending on their moods. The drive to the restaurant took me through downtown Phoenix, past the building where I'd been working in secret for the past 3 years. They didn't know about that building, about the company I'd been building, about the life I'd been constructing parallel to the one where I was their disappointment. That secret felt like armor as I valeted my car and walked into the Golden Swan. The hostess recognized the reservation immediately. "The Chen party? They're waiting for you in the Jade Room." She led me through the main dining area, past tables of laughing couples and celebrating families, to a private room in the back. The doors were heavy mahogany, and I could hear voices inside, lots of voices, more than just immediate family. When the doors opened, I understood immediately that this wasn't a birthday party. It was a trial, and I was the defendant who didn't know what crime she'd committed. The room was full. My father, Richard Chen, sat at the head of a long table in his best suit, the charcoal one he wore when he was closing deals that mattered. His face was stern, controlled, the expression he used when firing employees. My mother, Linda, sat to his right, her diamonds catching the light, her eyes fixed on the wine glass in front of her like it contained all the answers to questions she'd never ask. My younger brother, Daniel, the golden child who'd never done anything wrong in his 37 years of existence, sat across from them. His phone was already out, propped against a water glass, the red recording light blinking steadily. He was filming this, whatever this was, but it wasn't just them. My Aunt Patricia was there with her husband, George, both looking uncomfortable. 3 of my father's business partners sat at the far end of the table, men in expensive suits who kept checking their watches. Cousins I hadn't seen in years filled the remaining chairs. 20 people, maybe more, all here for my birthday celebration. "Victoria," my father said, not standing, not smiling. "You're here. Sit down. Not happy birthday, not we're glad you could make it." Just a command, delivered with the same tone he used for the household staff. I took the only empty chair, positioned halfway down the table's side, not at a place of honor, but among the audience. Because that's what this was, I realized they were the audience, and I was about to become the show. A waiter appeared immediately, pouring champagne for everyone. No one raised their glass to toast. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the soft clink of crystal and the distant sound of the real celebrations happening in other rooms. "We should order," my father announced, and proceeded to do exactly that, selecting for the entire table without asking anyone's preferences. "The 8-course tasting menu," he told the waiter, "with wine pairings. The most expensive option, of course." Richard Chen never did anything halfway when appearances mattered. As we waited for the first course, conversation started, but it moved around me like water around a stone. My father discussed a new real estate development with his partners. My mother complimented Patricia's new bracelet. Daniel showed cousin Jeffrey something on his phone, both of them chuckling. I sat in my emerald dress, invisible at my own birthday dinner, and wondered why I'd been invited at all. The first course arrived. Oysters with champagne foam. I'd never liked oysters, a fact my family should have known after 40 years. I pushed them around the delicate plate, making them look eaten without actually consuming anything. My stomach was too tight for food anyway. Something was coming. I could feel it in the air, heavy and electric like the moment before a phoenix dust storm. "So, Victoria," Aunt Patricia finally acknowledged me, her voice artificially bright, "are you still doing that computer thing?" Before I could answer, my father cut in. "She does data entry, basic office work, nothing that requires much thought." I'd stopped correcting him years ago. There was no point explaining that I was actually building revolutionary technology, that my algorithms were being tested by Fortune 500 companies, that I had investors circling with term sheets worth millions. He decided long ago what I was capable of, and facts weren't going to change his mind. The second course came and went, then the third, each one more elaborate than the last, and each one turning to ash in my mouth. The conversation continued its careful dance around me. My mother's charity work, Daniel's promotion to senior partner at his investment firm, cousin Sarah's engagement to a surgeon, success stories from everyone except the birthday girl, who apparently didn't merit discussion. It wasn't until the 5th course that I noticed the pattern. Every few minutes, someone would glance at my father, then at their watch, then at me, waiting for something. The business partners looked increasingly uncomfortable. One of them kept clearing his throat like he wanted to say something, but couldn't. Daniel's phone remained recording, that red light steady and unblinking. He'd adjusted its position twice, making sure it had a clear view of my face. Why did my face need to be recorded at my own birthday dinner? The 6th course arrived with fanfare. "Duck confit with cherry reduction," my father announced to the table, as if we couldn't read the menu cards ourselves. He launched into a story about having the same dish in Paris, name-dropping restaurants and business associates, performing success for his audience. That's when I realized what felt so wrong. This wasn't a family dinner. It was a performance, and everyone except me knew their role. My mother kept touching her pearls nervously. Daniel's usual smirk had an edge of anticipation. The cousins avoided eye contact with me entirely. "The market's been interesting lately," one of my father's partners ventured, clearly attempting to fill the strange silence that kept descending. "Indeed," my father replied. "Changes are coming. Necessary changes. Sometimes you have to cut your losses to protect your assets." He looked directly at me when he said it. So did everyone else. The 7th course was being cleared when my father stood up. The room went silent immediately, everyone turning to face him like flowers following the sun. He reached into his jacket pocket, and my heart started pounding before I even knew why. "Before dessert," he said, his voice formal, the one he used for board meetings, "there's some business to attend to." Business. At my birthday dinner. He pulled out a manila envelope, thick with papers, sealed with the kind of industrial tape that meant serious documents were inside legal documents from the look of it. The envelope had weight to it, substance. Whatever was inside had required lawyers and notaries and official seals. Victoria, he said, and now everyone was definitely looking at me. This has been a long time coming. Daniel adjusted his phone again, zooming in on my face. Several cousins pulled out their phones too, not even pretending to be subtle about recording whatever was about to happen. You've been a burden on this family for 40 years, my father continued, his voice steady and measured, like he'd practiced this speech, constantly disappointing us, failing to meet even the most basic expectations, embarrassing us with your inadequacy. The words hit like physical blows, but I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I was frozen in my chair, my hands gripping the edge of the table. We've tried everything: therapy, interventions, second chances, third chances, fourth chances. Nothing has worked. You remain stubbornly committed to being less than what this family requires. My mother was crying silently, tears sliding down her cheeks, but she didn't speak up, didn't defend me. She just sat there, letting it happen. Therefore, my father said, sliding the envelope down the table toward me, we've taken legal action to formally sever ties. The envelope stopped directly in front of my untouched dessert plate. A small cake had appeared while my father was speaking. Happy 40th birthday, Victoria, written in pink frosting. The irony was almost poetic. Open it, he commanded. My hands moved without my permission, picking up the envelope. The tape peeled away easily. Inside was a stack of legal documents, dense with text, but certain phrases jumped out immediately. Dissolution of familial relationship. Renunciation of all parental rights and obligations. No claim to inheritance or family assets. Severing of all legal and social ties. At the bottom of the last page, 2 signatures. Richard Chen, Linda Chen. Both notarized, dated a week ago. They'd been planning this, preparing it, getting it legally certified. These are disownment papers, my father explained unnecessarily. Everyone could see what they were. As of this moment, you are no longer our daughter. You have no claim to the Chen name, no right to any family resources, no place in our lives. We're making it official, legal, and public. Public? That's why the audience was here. That's why the cameras were recording. They wanted witnesses to my humiliation, documentation of my disposal. I looked up from the papers to find every face in the room watching me. Most looked uncomfortable, but fascinated, like drivers passing an accident. Daniel was grinning openly now, his phone steady on my face. One of the business partners had actually stood up and was backing toward the door, apparently reaching his limit for witness cruelty. Do you have anything to say? My father asked, and it sounded like he was hoping I would. Hoping I'd cry, beg, make a scene that would justify this elaborate destruction. I looked at my mother. She met my eyes for just a moment, and I saw something flicker there. Regret? Shame? But then she looked away, back to her wine glass, and I knew she'd chosen her side long ago. I carefully folded the documents and placed them back in the envelope. Then I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. In the silence, Daniel tracked my movement with his phone, making sure to capture every moment. I looked directly into his camera lens. Keep recording, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. You'll want to watch this part over and over. Then I turned to face my father, meeting his eyes with a calm that clearly unsettled him. Watch Channel 12 News, I said clearly, making sure everyone could hear. Thursday night, 8 p.m. That's in 48 hours. I picked up the envelope containing my disownment papers and walked toward the door. As I passed Daniel, I paused. Make sure you save that video, I told him. You'll want to compare it to Thursday's broadcast. The contrast will be educational. Then I walked out, past the birthday cake no one would eat, past the relatives who'd come to witness my humiliation, past the waiters hovering uncertainly in the doorway, through the main dining room where normal families were having normal dinners, where children were being celebrated instead of discarded. The valet brought my car quickly. Probably noting my face and deciding not to delay, I drove home on autopilot, my mind already moving past the shock to what came next. They thought they'd ended me tonight. They had no idea they'd just set me free. My apartment was dark when I arrived, but I didn't turn on the lights immediately. I stood in my living room, still in my emerald dress, holding the envelope that had just severed me from the only family I'd ever known. The city lights of Phoenix sparkled through my windows, and I let myself feel the weight of what had just happened. 40 years of trying to earn their love, and they'd ended it with paperwork and an audience. But here's what they didn't know, what they'd never bothered to learn about their disappointing daughter. I'd been preparing for this moment for 3 years. It had started when I was 37, after yet another family dinner, where I'd been ignored, dismissed, and diminished. I'd gone home that night and made a decision. If I was never going to be good enough for them, I'd become more than enough for myself. I'd legally changed my name first, adding Sterling, my mother's maiden name, as my professional surname. Victoria Sterling sounded stronger than Victoria Chen anyway. Then I'd started building Tech Nova in secret, working 18-hour days while maintaining my cover job at a data entry firm during business hours. My family never questioned where I went in the evenings. They'd never cared enough to ask. The algorithm I'd developed was elegant in its simplicity. It analyzed supply chain inefficiencies using artificial intelligence, identifying where small businesses were hemorrhaging money, and automatically suggesting fixes. What started as a side project had grown into something revolutionary. 3 years of pitching to investors who initially laughed at the data entry girl with big dreams. 3 years of coding until my eyes burned, surviving on instant noodles and determination. 3 years of building a company that now had 15,000 clients, an evaluation that would shock anyone who knew me as the Chen family disappointment. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, my co-founder and the only person who knew my whole story. Final prep meeting tomorrow at 10. Bloomberg's definitely leading with your story. You sure about revealing everything? I typed back, they revealed everything tonight. Time to return the favor. Thursday's IPO announcement wasn't just business news, it was my resurrection. Planned down to the smallest detail. Every major financial network would carry it. The story was too good to ignore. Local woman builds billion-dollar company while family plans her destruction. I finally turned on the lights and walked to my home office. The walls were covered with whiteboards full of code, business plans, trajectory charts showing Tech Nova's explosive growth. This room was my real life. Everything else had been marking time. My laptop contained files my family would never see. Financial projections showing Tech Nova would be worth $1.8 billion at IPO contracts with major corporations. Featured articles in TechCrunch and Wired, all under Victoria Sterling, a name my family wouldn't recognize. But there was another file, one I'd never opened. The USB drive my grandmother Eleanor had given me before she died 4 years ago. Eleanor had been the only one who'd seen me, really seen me. While the rest of the family treated me like furniture, she treated me like a person. On her deathbed, she'd pressed that drive into my hand with urgent words. I've been watching them, recording them. When you're ready to know the truth about your family, it's all here. I'd never been ready before. Tonight, I was. I plugged in the drive, a single folder appeared. For Victoria, the truth. Inside were dozens of video files, audio recordings, even photographs. All dated, all labeled Eleanor had been documenting my family for years. I clicked on a video from 5 years ago. Eleanor's living room came into focus, the camera hidden somewhere high. My father and Daniel sat on her couch, speaking quietly while they thought she was napping in her bedroom. Victoria's getting too competent, my father said. She fixed that disaster with the Peterson contract. If she keeps improving, she'll want a real position in the company. So, Daniel asked, so she'll see the books. She'll see what we've been doing. What they'd been doing. I paused the video, my heart racing. What had they been doing? I found a folder labeled Financial Documents and opened it. Screenshots of bank statements, emails, transfer records. My father had been embezzling from his own company for years, funneling money through shell corporations. And he'd been using my name. Loans taken out using my social security number. Credit cards opened without my knowledge. Investment accounts created with forged signatures. All of it traceable back to me if anyone looked. He'd been setting me up as his scapegoat for years. Another video, this one from 2 years ago. My mother and Patricia in Eleanor's kitchen. "Linda, you have to stop Richard," Patricia was saying. "What he's doing to Victoria is cruel." My mother's response was quiet but clear. "If I challenge him, he'll leave me with nothing. I signed a prenup. I have no skills, no money of my own. So I stay quiet, and I survive." She'd chosen her financial security over protecting her daughter. Somehow, that hurt more than my father's active cruelty. I spent the next 3 hours going through Eleanor's evidence. Every video, every document, every photo painted the same picture. A family that had been systematically destroying me while I desperately tried to earn their love. There was a video of Daniel at 25, learning from our father how to manipulate the books. "This is why Victoria can never be part of the business," our father explained. "She's too honest. She'd ruin everything." There was audio of my mother on the phone with her sister. "I know Victoria's struggling, but if I help her, Richard will punish me too. It's better if she just accepts her place." There was a photo of a document I'd never seen before. My birth certificate, but not the one I had. This one had additional information. A note in the margin. Twin B, deceased. I'd been a twin. I'd had a sister who died at birth, and they'd never told me a video from just 6 months before Eleanor's death explained that secret. My parents sat in Eleanor's living room arguing. "You always compare her to Sarah," my mother was saying. "It's not fair. Sarah died. Victoria lived. That's not her fault." "Sarah would have been perfect," my father replied. "We knew it from the ultrasounds. The doctor said she was developing faster, stronger. We got the wrong daughter, Linda. We've been stuck with the inferior twin for 40 years. The wrong daughter, the inferior twin. They'd been mourning a child who died while resenting the one who lived." Part 2. Continuation. Eleanor had known everything. She'd documented it all, building a case file that would destroy them if it ever came to light. But she'd also protected me from it while she was alive, letting me maintain the illusion that somewhere, deep down, my family loved me. The final file in the folder was a video message from Eleanor herself, recorded just days before her death. She looked directly at the camera, her eyes sharp despite the cancer ravaging her body. "Victoria, if you're watching this, it means you're finally ready to see who they really are. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you better. I'm sorry I couldn't make them love you the way you deserved. But I want you to know something. Their inability to love you isn't your failure, it's theirs. You were never inferior. You were just inconvenient to their narrative. Take this evidence and use it however you need to. Build your life without them. And remember, my darling girl, the best revenge is a life well lived." I sat back in my chair, overwhelmed by the weight of truth. My family hadn't just neglected me or dismissed me, they'd actively conspired against me for decades. And now, with their dramatic disownment dinner, they thought they'd won. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I picked up my phone and called Jennifer, my CFO at Technova. "Victoria, it's midnight. Is everything okay?" "Change of plans for Thursday's announcement," I said. "I want to add something to my origin story." "What kind of something?" "The truth. All of it." There was a pause. Jennifer had been with me since the beginning, one of the few people who knew that Victoria Sterling and Victoria Chen were the same person. "Are you sure? Once it's out there, you can't take it back. They filmed my disownment dinner tonight. My brother's probably already posting it on social media, thinking it'll humiliate me. I want the world to see what happened next. Damn, okay. I'll call the PR team. We'll need to restructure the entire presentation. I'll send you the details in the morning. And Jennifer, make sure Bloomberg knows this isn't just a business story, it's a human story. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation. The media training team worked with me on my delivery, helping me find the balance between professional success story and personal revelation. The legal team reviewed everything to ensure I wasn't exposed to defamation lawsuits. The PR team crafted messages that would maximize impact while maintaining my dignity. Meanwhile, my phone exploded with messages from family members. My father left 3 voicemails, each more angry than the last, demanding to know what I meant by my cryptic threat. My mother sent texts that alternated between concern and condemnation. Daniel posted the video of my disownment on Instagram with the caption, "Dead weight finally cut loose," and watched it go viral in Phoenix social circles. I didn't respond to any of them. Let them wonder. Let them worry. Wednesday afternoon, a knock at my office door interrupted my final preparation. Marcus walked in with a tablet in his hand, his face grim. "You need to see this," he said, showing me the screen. It was a business news article. Chen Enterprises under federal investigation for embezzlement. My father's company was being raided. The authorities had received an anonymous tip about financial irregularities. The timing was purely coincidental. I hadn't sent Eleanor's evidence anywhere yet, but the irony was delicious. "He's going to think you did this," Marcus said. "Good. Let him panic about what else I might do. You know this is going to get ugly, right? When your announcement hits tomorrow, connecting you to this scandal. That's why we're going to make it clear that I've had no involvement with Chen Enterprises for years, that I built Technova entirely separately, that my success has nothing to do with them." Marcus studied me for a moment. "You've been planning this for a long time, haven't you?" 3 years, I admitted. "Ever since I realized they were never going to love me, I've been building a life where their love doesn't matter." Thursday arrived with clear skies and a sense of destiny. I woke at 5, went for a run through the desert trails near my apartment, letting the sunrise remind me that endings were also beginnings. Back home, I dressed carefully in the outfit my stylist had selected, a deep purple suit that projected power and confidence. My makeup artist arrived at noon, followed by the camera crew who would film my journey to the studio. The script had been rehearsed dozens of times, but I wasn't nervous. For the first time in my 40 years, I knew exactly who I was and what I was worth, not to my family, but to the world. At 6 p.m., the car arrived, a black town car with a driver who'd been briefed on the magnitude of this evening. As we drove through Phoenix toward the studio, I thought about that 12-year-old girl standing in the science fair, waiting for parents who would never come. I thought about the 17-year-old who saved her father's company, only to be told to mind her own business. I thought about the 37-year-old who decided to stop shrinking and start building all of those versions of me had led to this moment. The studio was buzzing with energy when I arrived. Bloomberg, CNBC, Fox Business, the Wall Street Journal, they were all there. The story had leaked just enough to create anticipation. Local tech CEO with mysterious past about to reveal all during IPO announcement. The makeup artist did final touch-ups. The sound engineer checked my microphone. The producer counted down to airtime. "Remember," the media coach whispered in my ear, "you're not just telling your story. You're giving permission to everyone who's been dismissed by their family to build something better." I nodded, straightened my shoulders, and faced the cameras. 5, 4, 3, 2. The red light went on. "Good evening," the host began. "We're here with Victoria Sterling, CEO and founder of Technova, as the company goes public with an initial valuation of $1.8 billion. But there's more to this story than just business success. Victoria, You have quite a journey to share with us tonight. I looked directly into the main camera, knowing exactly who would be watching. 2 nights ago, on my 40th birthday, my biological family held what they told me would be a celebration dinner. Instead, they presented me with legal disownment papers in front of an audience of relatives and business associates. They filmed it, thinking they were documenting my humiliation. I paused. Let that sink in for the viewers. What they actually documented was my liberation. The host leaned forward, genuinely intrigued. That's an extraordinary claim. Can you elaborate? For 40 years, I was Victoria Chen, the disappointing daughter of Richard and Linda Chen. Nothing I did was ever good enough. Every achievement was dismissed. Every effort to contribute was rejected. I spent decades trying to earn love from people who had decided before I was born that I was the wrong daughter. Before you were born? I recently discovered I was a twin. My sister died at birth. My parents spent 40 years comparing me to a child who never lived, finding me inferior to a ghost. Gasps from the production crew. This wasn't in the pre-interview notes, but 3 years ago, I continued, I made a decision. If I was never going to be good enough as Victoria Chen, I would become Victoria Sterling. I legally added my mother's maiden name and started building Technova in secret. Every night after my data entry job, every weekend, every spare moment went into creating something that was entirely mine. And your family didn't know? They never asked where I went or what I did. I was furniture to them, present but unimportant. That invisibility became my advantage. While they were planning my public humiliation, I was building an empire. The host pulled up a tablet. We have the video your brother posted of the disownment dinner. Should we show it? Please do. The screen filled with Daniel's video. There I sat in my emerald dress, surrounded by family, as my father read those awful words. You've been a burden on this family for 40 years. The camera captured my face as I read the documents, showed me standing, delivering my cryptic message about watching the news. That's remarkable composure, the host said when the video ended. I knew what was coming next. This moment right here, telling the truth to the world while they watch from homes they won't have much longer. What do you mean? My father's company, Chen Enterprises, is under federal investigation for embezzlement. He's been using my name and social security number for fraudulent loans for years, setting me up as a scapegoat for when his schemes collapsed. I have extensive documentation of this, provided by my late grandmother who spent years recording evidence of his crimes. Are you saying your father committed identity theft against you? Among other things. But that's for the federal investigators to determine. I'm here to talk about Technova and what we've built. The interview shifted to the business story. I explained our revolutionary algorithm, our client base, our expansion plans. I talked about the 20,000 jobs we'd created, the small businesses we'd saved, the technology that would change how commerce worked for millions of people. Your company is valued at $1.8 billion, the host said. You built this in 3 years while working a day job and hiding it from your family? Success is the best revenge, I said, but it's not about them anymore. It's about the 300 employees who believed in a vision. It's about the small business owners who trusted us with their livelihoods. It's about proving that where you come from doesn't determine where you're going. Speaking of where you're going, what's next for Victoria Sterling? I smiled, the first genuine smile I'd had in days. We're establishing the Eleanor Sterling Foundation, named for my grandmother, who saw my worth when no one else did. It will provide resources for people escaping toxic family situations, housing assistance, job training, therapy, legal support. Because sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you're meant to have. That's remarkable. Any message for your biological family? I looked directly into the camera again. Yes. You thought you were ending my story 2 nights ago. You were right. Victoria Chen's story is over. But Victoria Sterling? She's just getting started. And the beautiful irony is that your cruelty gave me the freedom to become who I was always meant to be. So thank you for the Disownment Papers. They were the best birthday gift you ever gave me. The host wrapped up the interview, but I wasn't done. As the camera stopped rolling for broadcast, I spoke to the room. "Keep filming," I said. "I want this next part documented." I pulled out my phone and dialed a number from memory. It rang twice before my father answered. "Victoria?" His voice was strained, angry. "No," I said, making sure the cameras caught this. "Victoria Chen doesn't exist anymore. You killed her 2 nights ago, remember? This is Victoria Sterling, CEO of a company worth more than you'll ever see in your lifetime. I'm calling to tell you that the evidence grandmother collected is being turned over to the authorities tomorrow. Every fraud, every embezzlement, every crime you committed. I wanted you to hear it from me first, as a courtesy you never gave me. You can't do this. I'm your father." "No, you're not. You have legal documents saying so. Goodbye, Richard." I hung up and turned back to the cameras. "Now it's over." The studio erupted in applause. Producers, camera operators, even the typically jaded journalists were clapping. The story was already trending on social media. The Disownment video Daniel had posted was being compared to my IPO announcement, the contrast stark and damning. Within an hour, the story had gone international. Disowned daughter becomes billionaire 48 hours later. The ultimate revenge success story. How Victoria Sterling rose from the ashes of Victoria Chen. My phone exploded with notifications. Interview requests from Oprah, Ellen, every major talk show, book deal offers, movie rights inquiries. Everyone wanted to know more about the woman who turned familial rejection into billion-dollar success. But the message that mattered most came from a number I didn't recognize. My name is Amy. I'm 22 and my family disowned me 6 months ago for refusing to marry the man they chose. I've been living in my car, barely surviving. I just watched your interview. You showed me it's possible to build something from nothing. Thank you for giving me hope. I forwarded the message to Jennifer with instructions. Find her first recipient of the Eleanor Sterling Foundation. Full ride, housing, education, whatever she needs. That night, I returned to my apartment to find it surrounded by news vans. Reporters shouted questions as I walked from my car to the building. I didn't answer them. The story had been told. Everything else was just noise. Inside, I poured myself a glass of wine, the good stuff, not the cheap bottles I'd survived on for years, and sat on my balcony overlooking Phoenix somewhere in this city. My former family was watching their world collapse. Chen Enterprises stock had plummeted. My father's investors were pulling out. The federal investigation was expanding. My mother had released a statement through a lawyer. "We're proud of Victoria's success and wish her well." Empty words from an empty woman. Daniel's Instagram had gone private after thousands of comments called him out for filming my humiliation. His viral video had backfired spectacularly, becoming evidence of cruelty rather than entertainment. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just a strange emptiness where my family had once lived in my heart. They were strangers now, people I'd once known but no longer recognized. 3 months later, the dust had settled into a new reality. Technova's IPO had exceeded all projections, closing at $2.1 billion on the first day of trading. We'd expanded to international markets, hired 500 new employees, and were in talks for a major acquisition that would triple our value. The Eleanor Sterling Foundation had helped 50 people escape toxic families in its first quarter. Each story broke my heart and rebuilt it stronger. The young man whose parents beat him for being gay. The woman whose family sold her into an arranged marriage. The teenager whose parents stole her college fund for drugs. Each one got housing, therapy, education, and most importantly, the message that they deserved better. I'd moved to a penthouse apartment in downtown Phoenix, not for the luxury but for the symbolism. I could see the entire city from my windows, including the neighborhood where I'd grown up invisible. Now I was unmissable. My name on buildings, my story in textbooks, my success undeniable. The legal situation with my father had progressed predictably. He'd been arrested on multiple federal charges, including embezzlement, fraud, and identity theft. The evidence Eleanor had collected was damning and comprehensive. He was looking at 15 to 20 years in prison. His lawyers had reached out about a plea deal. If I'd provided character reference, I'd laughed and hung up. My mother had divorced him the moment his assets were frozen, taking what little remained of their wealth and moving to her sister's house in Florida. She'd sent me a letter, 10 pages of justification and self-pity, explaining how she'd been a victim too. I'd read it once, then shredded it. Some apologies came too late to matter. Daniel had lost everything. His investment firm had fired him when the scandal broke. His wife had left him when the money ran out. He'd applied for a job at Technova through our website, apparently not realizing our HR department would flag his application immediately. The irony was delicious. The golden child begging for scraps from the discarded daughter. But the most unexpected development came 6 months after the IPOA young woman showed up at Technova's headquarters, asking to see me. Security was about to turn her away when she said something that made them call me immediately. "Tell her Sarah Chen is here. Tell her I'm her twin sister." I stared at the security monitor, looking at a face that was mine but wasn't same bone structure, same eyes, but with subtle differences that spoke of a different life lived. "That's impossible," I told security. "Sarah Chen died at birth." "Ma'am," the guard said quietly, "she has documentation, birth certificate, adoption papers, DNA test results. Should we call the police?" I was in the elevator before he finished the sentence. She was sitting in the lobby, wearing jeans and a Columbia University sweatshirt, looking remarkably calm for someone claiming to be my dead twin. When she saw me, she stood but didn't approach, letting me set the distance. We stared at each other for a long moment, two women seeing themselves reflected in a stranger. "You're supposed to be dead," I finally said. "You're supposed to be a disappointment," she replied. "Looks like we both defied expectations." "How?" She pulled a folder from her backpack, handed it to me with steady hands. Inside was the truth that rewrote my entire history. "Our parents didn't want twins," she explained as I read. "Too expensive, too complicated for their image. So they made a deal with a private adoption agency. They told the agency they wanted to keep the stronger twin based on prenatal testing. They chose you, but they said you died. Easier than explaining they'd sold one daughter while keeping the other, I was adopted by a family in New York. Good people, teachers, told me the truth when I turned 18. I've known about you for 4 years, but after seeing what they put you through, I decided to wait until you were free of them. You've been watching me, following your story. When the disownment video went viral, I knew it was time. You deserved to know you weren't alone, that there was another Chen daughter out there who they'd thrown away." I sank into a lobby chair. Overwhelmed, Sarah sat beside me, not touching, just present. "What do you want?" I asked. "Nothing. I have parents who love me, a good life, a career I enjoy. I just thought you should know that their cruelty started before you were even born. You were never going to be enough because they'd already decided to be the kind of people who could sell one child and emotionally destroy the other." We talked for 3 hours in a private conference room. Sarah was a doctor, pediatric surgeon, saving children's lives every day. She was married to a wonderful woman named Claire, had 2 dogs, volunteered at homeless shelters. She was everything our parents would have wanted in a daughter, and they'd sold her for convenience. "Do you hate them?" I asked. "No. They gave me to people who knew how to love. If anything, I pity them. They had 2 daughters who could have been extraordinary, and they threw us both away for different reasons." Before she left, we exchanged numbers, made tentative plans for coffee next month. Not as sisters exactly. We lived too many years apart for that immediate bond, but as two survivors of the same original wound. Can I ask you something? She said at the door. Do you ever regret how it ended with them? I thought about it, really considered the question. I regret that they couldn't be better people. I regret the years I wasted trying to earn something they weren't capable of giving. But the ending? No. They freed me to become who I really am. Victoria Chen had to die for Victoria Sterling to be born. A year passed. Technova's value hit $5 billion. The Eleanor Sterling Foundation expanded nationally, helping hundreds escape toxic families. I spoke at universities, conferences, anywhere my story might help someone else trapped in familial dysfunction. The trial of Richard Chen became national news. The extent of his crime shocked even seasoned investigators. 20 years of fraud, embezzlement, money laundering. He'd built his entire empire on lies and theft, much of it blamed on the daughter he'd been setting up as a scapegoat for decades. During the trial, I was called as a witness. It was the first time I'd seen him since that birthday dinner. He looked smaller, older, diminished in his orange jumpsuit. When our eyes met across the courtroom, I felt nothing. He was a stranger who happened to share my DNA, nothing more. My testimony was clinical, factual. I presented the evidence Eleanor had collected, explained the pattern of identity theft, detailed the systematic emotional and financial abuse. When his lawyer tried to paint me as a vengeful daughter, I simply pointed to the timeline. I built my company while having no contact with Richard Chen. My success has nothing to do with him, except that his cruelty motivated me to become better than he ever imagined possible. He was convicted on all charges, 25 years without possibility of parole. As they led him away, he turned to look at me one more time. His lips moved, saying something I couldn't hear and didn't care to know. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. How does it feel to see your father convicted? Richard Chen is not my father, I said clearly. He legally disowned me. He's just a criminal who used my name to commit fraud. My story isn't about him anymore. It's about building something beautiful from broken pieces. The night Sarah called. We'd been building a friendship slowly, carefully. Two women, learning to be sisters, 4 decades late. I watched the trial coverage, she said. You were magnificent. I felt nothing, I admitted. Is that wrong? You felt nothing because there's nothing left to feel. They're not our parents, Victoria. They're just people who contribute DNA. We both found our real families elsewhere. She was right. My real family was Marcus, who believed in Technova when it was just an idea, Jennifer, who'd worked 18-hour days to make our IPO perfect. The team at the foundation who helped abuse survivors rebuild their lives, Sarah herself, the sister I'd thought was dead, who'd become an unexpected friend. 2 years after the Disownment dinner, I stood on a stage in front of 5,000 people at a women's leadership conference. The massive screen behind me showed 2 images side by side, me at that dinner, reading Disownment Papers, and me ringing the opening bell at NYSE. This is what rock bottom looks like, I said, pointing to the first image. 40 years old, publicly disowned, humiliated, discarded. And this, I pointed to the second image, is what's possible when you stop letting other people define your worth. The audience was silent, riveted. I spent 40 years trying to earn love from people incapable of giving it. I twisted myself into shapes that hurt, trying to fit into spaces that were never meant for me. And when they finally, officially, legally rejected me, they gave me the greatest gift imaginable, permission to stop trying. I talked about building Technova, about the nights I'd coded until my eyes burned, about the investors who'd laughed at me, about the moments I'd wanted to give up but didn't. Your biological family is an accident of DNA, I said. Your real family is built from the people who see you, support you, and celebrate you. Some of us are lucky enough to be born into that family. The rest of us have to build it ourselves. After my speech, a young woman approached me, tears streaming down her face. "My parents disowned me last month," she said, "for being trans. I've been living in my car, thought about ending everything, but hearing your story, maybe I can build something too?" I hugged her, this stranger who felt like kin, and whispered, "You can build anything. Let me help." She became the newest recipient of the Eleanor Sterling Foundation. 6 months later, she sent me a photo from her first day at art school, smiling and alive, and proof that families can be chosen rather than endured. The Chen family faded into obscurity. Richard served his time in federal prison, becoming a cautionary tale about greed and hubris. Linda lived quietly in Florida, sending me a birthday card once that I returned unopened. Daniel worked at a car dealership in Tucson, his golden boy shine tarnished beyond repair. But Victoria Sterling, she thrived. Technova went on to revolutionize how small businesses operated globally. We acquired 3 major companies, expanded to 50 countries, employed 30,000 people. The technology we developed saved businesses billions, while creating sustainable growth models that benefited workers and owners alike. The Eleanor Sterling Foundation became a national movement. We opened transition houses in 12 cities, providing safe spaces for people escaping toxic families. We funded therapy, education, job training, legal support. We created a network of chosen families, survivors supporting survivors. I never married, never had children of my own. Instead, I became a mother figure to hundreds of people who'd been discarded by their biological families. Each success story healed something in me, proof that rejection could be redirected into purpose. On my 45th birthday, 5 years after the Disownment dinner, I held my own celebration. Not in a fancy restaurant with judgment and cruelty, but in a park with 200 people who'd become my chosen family. Technova employees, foundation recipients, Sarah and her family, everyone who'd helped build the life Victoria Chen never could have imagined. Marcus raised a toast as the sun set over Phoenix. "To Victoria Sterling," he said, "who turned poison into medicine, rejection into revolution, and proved that the best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you. It's building something so beautiful they become irrelevant." Everyone cheered, and I felt it then. The thing I'd spent 40 years searching for in the wrong places. Love. Real, unconditional, chosen love from people who saw my worth, not in spite of my broken pieces, but because of how I'd assembled them into something stronger. That night, I went home to my penthouse and stood at the windows looking out over Phoenix. Somewhere in the city, the people who'd raised me were living their small lives, trapped in the consequences of their cruelty. But I didn't think about them anymore. They were characters in a story that ended 5 years ago, when a woman in an emerald dress walked out of a restaurant with Disownment Papers and a plan. This is Revenge Stories with Michelle, a home for quiet courage and true endings. If you felt my words, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your voice matters here. Your story matters too. Because here's what I learned. Sometimes the family that raises you isn't the family that saves you. Sometimes rejection is redirection. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the foundation for the best thing you ever build. My name is Victoria Sterling. I used to be someone else, someone smaller, someone who believed she needed permission to exist. That person was officially disowned 5 years ago, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. The empire I built wasn't about revenge. It was about proof that their evaluation was wrong, proof that worth isn't determined by blood, proof that you can build a family from anyone brave enough to see and celebrate the real you. They thought they were ending my story that night at the Golden Swan. They were right. They ended Victoria Chen's story of seeking approval and acceptance from people incapable of giving it. But Victoria Sterling's story, the one where she builds a billion-dollar company, saves hundreds of people from similar rejection, finds a sister she thought was dead, and creates a chosen family that actually knows how to love, that story was just beginning, and it's still being written, one transformed life at a time, proving every day that the best revenge is a life so well lived that the people who rejected you become footnotes in your success story. They gave me Disownment Papers on my 40th birthday. I gave myself an empire, a purpose, and a family that chose me as fiercely as I chose them. That's not revenge, that's redemption, and it's mine.